They were born into privilege, raised in palatial mansions where spotlights never dimmed and applause never faded. To the outside world, it looked like a life to envy, a golden dream. But behind those glittering walls lived shadows darker than anyone dared to see. As daughters of legends, they were never free to be themselves. The world admired them as flawless icons, beautiful, powerful, untouchable, yet stripped of identity, reduced to one label, someone's daughter. Their childhoods weren't filled with innocence but with suffocating expectations, whispers that cut like knives, and cages gilded in gold. They weren't allowed to falter. They weren't allowed to fail. They weren't even allowed to simply exist as children. Their only command was to shine, no matter the sacrifice. But did anyone ever pause to wonder if they too carried fear, sorrow, and despair like the rest of us? And for those who dared to defy the script and break free, what terrible price did they pay for that freedom? Stay with us as we peel back the glitter and reveal the haunting truth behind their lives. Corinne Foxx. Corinne Foxx, imagine being the daughter of Jamie Foxx, one of Hollywood's rarest multi-talents. A man who can act, sing, host, and make the world laugh with nothing more than a glance. With a father like that, most people would assume the road ahead is paved in gold. Why even try, when you could simply bask in his spotlight? But Corinne Foxx refused to follow that script. She wasn't content to play the part of a Hollywood princess waiting for opportunities to fall into her lap. From day one, she made it clear, she would rise on her own terms. That choice came with a price. Everywhere she went, the same questions trailed her like shadows. Did your dad get you this role? Who would you be without his name? Each doubt cut deep, fueling her determination. Corinne wasn't looking to be defined by Jamie Foxx's shine. She was determined to ignite her own. She worked tirelessly, earning her degree from USC and sharpening her craft at the American Film Institute. She conquered the fashion world, striding down runways with the poise of a queen, winning attention not just for her beauty, but for her drive. And then she made her boldest move yet, stepping behind the camera. As a producer of Beat Shazam, she transformed a simple game show into a cultural sensation. No golden ticket, no shortcuts, just pure ambition, creativity, and vision. Still, she never turned her back on her father. Jamie Foxx has always been her greatest supporter, and their bond is unshakable. But he also knows his daughter needs her own stage, and shine she has. Today, Corinne walks the red carpet not as Jamie Foxx's daughter, but as an actress, producer, and model who has earned her own crown. And if you think Corinne's journey is inspiring, hold your breath, because Bria Murphy, daughter of the legendary Eddie Murphy, is about to take the world by storm in an even more dazzling way. Bria Murphy. Bria Murphy was born into the glow of Hollywood royalty, the daughter of comedy icon Eddie Murphy. But in Tinseltown, there's a silent expectation. If you're the child of a legend, you either rise just as high or risk being forever dismissed as nothing more than their shadow. Few have felt that weight more deeply than Bria. From the outside, her life seemed flawless. Sprawling mansions, luxury cars, exotic vacations, and parties filled with A-list names. Yet behind those glittering snapshots, she often felt invisible, consumed by the enormity of her father's fame. Every time she walked into a room, the question wasn't, "Bria, what do you do?" It was always, "Is Eddie Murphy here?" She had enough. Bria longed for recognition of her own. Instead of chasing the Hollywood spotlight, she turned to a different canvas, art. With gifted hands and a vivid imagination, she poured her struggles, identity, and the burden of legacy into bold, abstract paintings. Her first exhibition drew crowds mostly curious to glimpse Eddie Murphy's daughter. But when they entered the gallery, they were stunned. They hadn't expected such raw, moving talent. For once, Bria's voice spoke louder than her last name. Still, Hollywood has a way of calling its children back. Bria ventured into modeling and acting, proving herself step by step, from independent films to runways. No longer just Eddie's daughter, she forged her own identity. An artist, a model, an actress, and above all, a woman who refused to be trapped in someone else's shadow. Today, Bria Murphy shines on her own terms. She isn't a reflection, she's a force. But here's the twist. If you think Bria's story is inspiring, just wait until you meet her younger sister, Shane Audra Murphy. Bolder, fiercer, and ready to push things even further. Shane Audra Murphy. Shane Audra Murphy, the shadow who became a fighter, the rebellion no one ever saw coming. If Bria Murphy was Hollywood's diamond, then Shane was the hidden fire nobody bothered to notice, until the day she refused to be overlooked. Born the daughter of comedy legend Eddie Murphy and the younger sister of Bria, Shane grew up drowning in comparison. Bria was worshipped as a goddess of beauty, a fashion muse, the golden girl everyone adored. And Shane? She was just the cute little sister, a footnote in someone else's spotlight. On red carpets, Bria sparkled in designer gowns while Shane faded into the background, an accessory to another star's glow. But everyone has a breaking point. At just 19, Shane did the unthinkable, something no one in the Murphy dynasty could have predicted. She walked away. From Hollywood. From privilege. From the life everyone expected her to live. She dropped out of college, vanished from social media, and re-emerged in the unlikeliest place, New York's underground boxing scene. The sweet-faced girl was gone. In her place stood a fighter, bruised, battered, relentless. Every punch was a declaration. She would never be anyone's shadow again. When Bria discovered her sister's secret, she broke down in tears. "You don't have to do this. You're beautiful, you could model, you could have it all." But Shane only smiled through bloodied lips, unshaken. "You've never understood me. I don't want to be admired for my looks. I want to be remembered for my strength." 3 years later, Hollywood was buzzing with her name again, but not as Bria's little sister. Shane had become the first professional MMA fighter to rise from a Hollywood dynasty. On the night of her televised debut, the entire nation watched. Eddie Murphy and Bria sat frozen, their hearts pounding with every strike she landed. And when Shane delivered a knockout in the second round, the world went silent, stunned by the girl who had once lived in the shadows, but had fought her way into legend. Kavia James Wade. Kavia James Wade, Hollywood's boss baby and the secret no one dares to whisper. In a town overflowing with power players and megastars, no one ever imagined that one of its fiercest forces would be a toddler. She isn't a singer, an actress, or a model. Yet every raised eyebrow, every sharp side eye, every tiny remark seems to shake the industry to its core. From the moment she was born, the world held its breath. Fans expected a wide-eyed little princess, all dimples and smiles. Instead, when her first photo hit the internet, Kavia's gaze was unflinching, her eyes cutting straight through the lens as if she already knew Hollywood's darkest secrets. Instantly, she was crowned Shady Baby, the queen of the side eye, her unimpressed expressions turned into viral memes reposted by Rihanna, Kevin Hart, and even Oprah herself. But behind that iconic stare lies a story written in pain and resilience. Gabrielle Union's road to motherhood was paved with heartbreak. 9 miscarriages, countless failed treatments, each loss stealing a piece of her spirit. Surrogacy was the only path left, but Hollywood, ever hungry for scandal, twisted it into gossip. "She's not the real mother," the tabloids sneered. "This baby is just a stunt to save their marriage." The rumors spread like wildfire, but Kavia, even as an infant, seemed to absorb it all. While other babies cried for attention, she studied. She watched the fake smiles, the whispers behind doors, the kindness that vanished once the cameras were off. From the crib, she already understood, the world is not as pretty as it pretends to be. And that's why Kavia is different. She doesn't play by Hollywood's rules. She doesn't smile on command, doesn't bend to expectations. She exists on her own terms, and that's exactly why the world can't look away. Brands chase her, corporations beg for her endorsement, millions follow her every move. But she doesn't care. She won't perform. She won't conform. In a rare interview, when Gabrielle Union was asked why her daughter always looked so unbothered, she laughed and said, "Kavia is just being Kavia. She doesn't need Hollywood's approval. Hollywood needs to figure out how to deal with her." And that's the scariest part. This is only the beginning. One day, Kavia James Wade will step into Hollywood not as a child, but as a force of nature, armed with strength, intelligence, and an authenticity no one will be ready for. The world better prepare itself. But here's the twist. Kavia isn't the only child rewriting Hollywood's script. Because waiting in the wings is Zahara Jolie Pitt, the African princess who dared to defy the empire Angelina Jolie built for her. Zahara Jolie Pitt. Zahara Jolie Pitt, once hailed as Angelina Jolie's African princess. To the world, it looked like a fairy tale, the daughter of Hollywood's most powerful actress, raised in privilege and love. But for Zahara, that gilded dream often felt like a cage. From an orphanage in Ethiopia to the flashing cameras of Los Angeles, her journey was one few could even imagine. In 2005, when Angelina adopted her at the height of her fame, the media celebrated it as a story of salvation. Headlines gushed, magazines filled with photos of Angelina, Brad Pitt, and little Zahara, while the world applauded. She was hailed as the symbol of love without borders, proof of Angelina's humanitarian spirit. But behind the glossy images lived a far more complicated truth. From the beginning, Zahara stood apart. The only black child in a family of white movie stars, she was often treated by Hollywood not as a daughter, but as a prop, an accessory to her mother's fame. While her siblings were praised as rising stars, Zahara was reduced to the African girl. Her existence spun into a PR victory rather than celebrated as her own identity. What the world didn't understand was that Zahara Jolie Pitt was never meant to be anyone's symbol. As she grew older, she began to resist. She refused the gowns chosen for her, embracing clothes that honored her African heritage. She spoke out about race, even when she knew it would bring criticism. She searched for her roots, writing to agencies in Ethiopia, desperate for answers about her birth family. The truth was devastating. Her mother had died shortly after childbirth, her father unknown. Zahara was left with questions that would never have answers. In her grief, she turned to the only place left, her adoptive family. And in one quiet moment, as Angelina placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "You don't need a name to know who you are. You are Zahara Jolie Pitt. And that is enough." Everything changed. From that day on, Zahara stopped searching for identity outside herself. She realized she already carried it, in her name, in her strength, and in the love of those who truly saw her. Yara Shahidi. Yara Shahidi. Proof that sometimes a last name can make the world pause and listen. But what happens when a young woman carries the bloodline of a hip-hop legend and chooses intellect over fame? That's the story of Yara Shai. She isn't just a name, she's a statement. The niece of rap icon Nas, Yara was born into a family where artistry runs through the veins. Everyone assumed she'd chase the spotlight, music, fashion, Hollywood stardom. Instead, she stunned the world by carving out a path in academia, activism, and intellectual leadership. At first, Hollywood wanted to mold her into a fashion darling or the next breakout star. But when she sat across from Michelle Obama to discuss the future of education, the truth became undeniable. Yara wasn't just another face on the screen. She was a force of thought, a young woman reshaping conversations that mattered. Of course, her choices came with backlash. When she announced she would attend Harvard University, critics treated it like betrayal, as if higher education meant abandoning stardom. But Yara didn't flinch. She kept stepping onto stages, TV panels, and global platforms, speaking boldly about black women's rights, the failures of the education system, and the power of black voices in shaping tomorrow. One reporter once asked her, "Aren't you afraid that if you walk away from Hollywood, people will forget you?" Yara smiled, eyes steady. "I don't need Hollywood to remember me. I need the world to remember what I do." And they have. Yara Shahidi isn't just an actress. She is the voice of a generation. A living reminder that brilliance outshines fame every single time. Marsai Martin. Marsai Martin was the plot twist Hollywood never saw coming. At just 14 years old, she delivered a masterclass the industry would never forget. Never underestimate the power of a young black girl. From the very beginning, Marsai was never meant to fade into the background. Yet, for decades, Hollywood ignored one undeniable truth: it never truly valued young black actresses. When she first stepped onto the screen in Blackish, producers wrote her off as just another adorable child star who would disappear once the spotlight dimmed. They assumed a teenager couldn't possibly offer more than a few memorized lines. But they were wrong. Dead wrong. One day, Marsai walked into a studio office with fire in her eyes, dropped a script on the table, and declared, "I'm going to produce this film. I'll star in it. And you're going to back it." The room laughed, because who would take a 14-year-old seriously? Producing a major motion picture? Impossible. But Marsai didn't flinch. She secured the funding, fought for full creative control, and worked tirelessly to bring her vision to life. And when Little finally premiered, the world fell silent. Marsai Martin shattered every expectation, becoming the youngest executive producer in Hollywood history. Her film was a success that silenced every critic who once doubted her. That teenage girl proved one thing with absolute clarity. In Hollywood, you don't wait for opportunity. You create it yourself. Regina Carter. Regina Carter, the hip-hop princess fighting for her own crown. When you're Lil Wayne's daughter, fame isn't something you chase. It's something that finds you before you even know who you are. But making the world see you as more than just someone's child? That's a battle few could ever imagine. From the moment Regina Carter was born, her name carried weight. Being the daughter of one of the greatest rappers alive wasn't just a blessing, it was also a cage. Every move she made was magnified under a relentless spotlight. Every outfit, every party, every relationship picked apart by critics. If she dared to live freely, she was called spoiled. If she tried to step into music, she was dismissed as riding her father's coattails. There were nights when the pressure nearly broke her. But then came the moment that changed everything. Standing on stage, staring out at a sea of fans screaming her name, Regina felt something shift. They weren't cheering for Lil Wayne's daughter, they were cheering for her. From that night forward, she doubled down, writing, recording, performing, determined to prove that she wasn't just surviving in her father's shadow, she was creating her own legacy. When asked if his daughter would ever escape his shadow, Lil Wayne leaned back, lit his cigar, and smiled. "My daughter doesn't need to step out of anyone's shadow," he said. "She shines in her own way." And he was right. Regina Carter isn't just Lil Wayne's daughter, she's a star in her own right. And now, the world is finally beginning to see her shine. Kyla Wayans. Kyla Wayans. The day she decided she didn't have to be funny anymore changed everything. The world expected her to carry on the family legacy. After all, she was Damon Wayans' daughter, born into one of Hollywood's most famous comedy dynasties. Everyone waited for her punchline, but Kyla was writing a different script. As a little girl, she grew up surrounded by laughter, yet she quietly despised it. Night after night, she watched her father set stages on fire, leaving audiences in tears of joy. But at home, she saw the cost, the exhaustion, the silence, the man behind the mask. That's when Kyla learned a harsh truth. Comedy wasn't just entertainment. It was armor. At 18, she auditioned for her first dramatic TV role. The director glanced at her resume and chuckled, "We're looking for a serious actress, not a comedian." Her hands curled into fists. To them, a Wayans could only make people laugh. That day, Kyla made a vow to prove them wrong. She turned down every easy comedic role Hollywood dangled in front of her and dove headfirst into tragedy, raw emotion, and roles that ended in anything but happy endings. Slowly, she reshaped her identity, not as another Wayans clowning for the crowd, but as a serious actress with something deeper to say. And then came the night her father watched her on screen. No jokes, no forced smiles, just pain, truth, and soul-bearing honesty. When the credits rolled, Damon Wayans turned to her and said softly, "You broke the family rules, and I couldn't be prouder." Kyla Wayans didn't need a punchline. She became something greater, an actress who turned defiance into art. Nala Yasmin Ivory Wayans. Nala Yasmin Ivory Wayans. When the daughter of a legend disappeared from Hollywood, whispers echoed through the industry. Nala Yasmin Ivory Wayans wasn't just another rising star, she was the daughter of Keenen Ivory Wayans, the genius behind a comedy empire. Every door was open, every opportunity within reach. The world was certain she was destined to shine. But behind the flashing cameras and glittering red carpets, Nala carried a secret. She never wanted Hollywood at all. From the start, she felt suffocated, trapped by the endless photo shoots, soul-crushing auditions, and the constant pressure to perform. She despised the parties, the gossip, the spotlight that magnified her every flaw. And then, at just 21, when everyone expected her to sign a blockbuster film deal, she vanished. No scandals. No headlines. No social media. She wasn't missing. She was free. Nala left America behind and crossed the ocean to Africa, the land of her ancestors. There, she built a life no Hollywood script could ever dream up, working with charities, helping underprivileged children, building schools in remote villages. While tabloids screamed, "Where is Nala Wayans?" she was standing in a dusty Kenyan field, laughing with children who didn't even know her last name. Years later, when a reporter finally found her and asked if she'd ever return to Hollywood, she smiled and said softly, "I never belonged to Hollywood. I belong here." And just like that, the daughter of a legend wrote her own story, one no one ever saw coming. Lori Harvey. Lori Harvey. When beauty turns into the deadliest weapon, the name that comes to mind is Lori Harvey. Hollywood has no shortage of gorgeous women, but few have learned to use beauty as power the way Lori has. The daughter of television icon Steve Harvey, Lori is more than a model. She's a strategist, a master player in a high-stakes game of fame, influence, and perception. From a young age, she grasped a truth most never realize. Beauty isn't just a blessing, it's leverage. Unlike others who rushed headfirst into Hollywood, Lori moved with calculation. She built her image piece by piece, chose her relationships like a chess master, and wrapped herself in an aura of mystery that made the world lean in closer. So when she stepped onto the Met Gala carpet, she wasn't just another pretty face. She was a vision of brilliance disguised as allure. The press branded her the most dangerous woman in Hollywood. And Lori, she only smiled. Because she knew the truth. She was playing a game no one else could master, and she was already winning. Blue Ivy Carter. Blue Ivy Carter. When being Beyoncé's daughter means you have to fight just to claim your own name. On the surface, it looks like privilege. But step into her shoes, and the story changes. From the moment she was born, Blue Ivy wasn't just a child, she was a headline. The daughter of Beyoncé and Jay-Z, the world assumed everything was hers. But no one talks about the cost. Every detail of her life was picked apart. She wasn't seen as a little girl, but as a spectacle. Would she copy her mother? Was she really talented, or just famous by default? Could she ever step out from that enormous shadow? Blue Ivy made a choice. She would fight for her place. As a child, she became one of the youngest Grammy winners in history with Brown Skin Girl. But instead of universal praise, the backlash came hard. Critics sneered that she won only because of her parents. Those words stung. She cried. And then Beyoncé pulled her close, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Never let anyone tell you that you don't deserve your success. You are not just my daughter. You are you." From that moment, Blue Ivy stopped trying to be a reflection of her mother. She studied music production, experimented with her own style, and even turned down singing certain Beyoncé songs. That wasn't Blue Ivy. She was determined to be more. Now, stepping into young adulthood, she's no longer just Beyoncé's daughter. She's Blue Ivy Carter, an artist, a budding entrepreneur, a force shaping her own story. And she's not alone. Across stages, screens, arenas, and studios, children of legends are proving something powerful. Fame can be inherited, but talent, grit, and staying power must be earned. They've faced the skepticism. They've stepped out of the shadows. And they've carved their own destinies. One thing's certain, the world won't just remember their parents' names, it will remember theirs. All the information in this video comes from reputable sources and is shared for educational purposes. We encourage you to explore multiple perspectives for a fuller picture. If this story resonated with you, tap like, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe so you never miss a new release. Let's keep uncovering the stories that shape our global culture.